All right, Chris. Uh,
All
how's it going?
good, yeah, not a bother. Yourself?
Great. I
Good.
put up a tiny clip on Instagram of our chat the last day, and it got a couple of people talking about airtightness. Um, and I was just wondering if we could expand on it maybe a little bit today. Um,
Sounds good.
I know you're always a wealth of knowledge, so I'm going to tap
Sorry about
in,
that.
tap in, and try and get some information off you.
Oh, yeah.
And then, so when we were talking, then you sent on a couple of pictures, and I had no idea what half of the stuff is. So I don't know how we'll be able to do it today, but maybe we might share a few pictures, and you might be able to talk through the
Grand.
kind of what's happening in relation to it. Yeah.
Grand.
Um, is that all right? Yeah, I presume
Of course
it's
it is. Yeah, yeah. Sounds good. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Sounds good. So wait, I'll leave it now in February. Something to, something
there's not much
to,
more.
no, something to be at, isn't it? Yeah, yeah,
Um,
yeah, that's for sure.
like I often kind of be chatting to you, and because I haven't been really in the building kind of game for maybe close to 15 years now, there's a lot of this stuff that is so kind of well modern, but like not modern as regards kind of Celtic Tiger building. It's unrecognizable really to what was being built then to what's going on now. So
Yeah, yeah.
what
Well,
do
I
you
suppose
think
this is
is
one of the big. Yeah, you're dead right. Apart from insulation within your cavities, this is probably the next big thing that's changed. So if you're with your cavity, your thickness of cavity insulation. I suppose that's the first thing you would have noticed maybe when you came back to building. The next
yeah,
thing, I suppose, is this stage because your blocks are up, your roof is on, and then suddenly this airtightness starts coming into the fold. You know what I mean? This, airtight seals on windows, doors, roofs, junctions with floors and walls and ceilings. You know, your chase is getting looked after in the block work. So that's as you say, it's one of the
yeah,
next things where you've got your, as you would have called it, like your structure up, building roof on. The next thing, wham, like there's this new cost we'll call it, or not that it's new, it's whatever, it's around longer than it's probably 15, 16 years definitely, on site. But it's new to a lot of people that, maybe built a house 20 years ago, 30 years ago, sold it and,
yeah,
and, and are rebuilding. It's definitely uh, on site. It's something a lot of people see, but it's probably the most thing that I still teach on site to lads. That makes sense. So like experienced carpenters doesn't matter. I mean, I have a brother that's what is he 55, and like he'll get all the idea of it going on the back of the timber and on the back of, in behind studding before you start putting up studding, you'll nail it to your joisting so that it's when you put up your studding, you have a piece of it either side of a stud wall to tape onto again. Little things like that, that, I suppose you're trying to make it better or easier on lads all the time. So, it's definitely something that I'd be instructing on, I suppose, on site more than I would. I'm not telling chippies how to put up studding or cut rafters, not telling block layers how to lay blocks, but I
yeah,
am telling these, the next stage I'm telling is I am instructed on this that you can't just chase the wall and not put this liquid membrane in the chase. That has to be done. Or when we're putting a studding, you have to have a roll of membrane there and be putting it on behind the studding so that it's there when you move to the next level of
yeah,
after you
yeah, yeah.
insulate, you're putting this, tying these together.
You
So like that instruction needs to be done.
and how are lads taking that instruction? Are they kind of welcoming
Fine.
it, or is there a bit of
Yeah,
resistance?
no resistance at all. No, if they don't know, if you don't tell them, and you try to get them to retrofit something, they're pissed off. That's the only blowback I get. So if you're not doing this stuff in time, lads get vexed or
Yeah.
call it. They don't like doing work twice, and even
Why
if you're
didn't you
paying
tell
them to do
me?
it twice, they don't
Yeah.
do it twice. Yeah, and I always find lads only want to do, they always want to do it right. Anybody that I've ever, the majority of people, not everybody, the majority of lads I've worked with, always they want to do it right. You know,
Yeah.
and as regulations change and there's other changes we'll talk about sometime down the line about the different types of stone you put under foundations. It has to these T1, T2, T3s. If you tell lads about that and they know about it, you never have to tell them again. They're always interested that,
Yeah.
this has happened. It's a change, and they'll do it the right way. Lads don't necessarily tradesmen are proud people, and they don't like getting caught out. Definitely, we call it with their trousers down. But like, by no means do they want an engineer or someone coming in and saying you
Yeah.
didn't do that right. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
Yeah.
they're very
No, no,
proud men. You know
definitely.
that the majority of them are
Yeah.
very
And
proud, proud men. Yeah.
I've often made the point about the personality type in the buildings is like they're very accountable because they've always been held to account by the next man. So like the block
Yeah,
layer is going to be the door for the carpenter who's putting in the door frames. He'll
yeah,
he'll soon call out a block layer if they're not
yeah,
straight, or the plasterer as well. The same thing, like
yeah.
the
And
floors
the
if
other
they're
thing,
not in straight.
this is tested as well now. So how do like, what I mean? Insulation in a cavity, you can get a thermal camera and you can get fairly good idea of what's, insulated or not. But like, there's a blower door test and it's a requirement if you build a new house and that's it. And that guy puts, has to 5 meters cube per meter, was it 5 meter per hour per meter square? I think is the new regulation. Used to be 7. It's different for commercial buildings. But like, this thing is tested, he gets the results. This guy, they're NSAI certified testers, so they're not messing around like an NCT test. They're not going to lose the certification for giving dodgy
Okay.
results. So that's it. It's black and white. He gets CAD drawings. He gets his meter squared. He works out what the test has to be, and he does a test. He's there for the best part of the day. He charges it maybe, for €250, depending who you're getting in what part of the country and everything else. But like, this thing is tested, and if it's not right, it's not right. And he can help you find where the leaks are and things like that. But like, it's not, you're not necessarily messing around with these things.
So the blower test, he basically pressurizes the house, like
Yeah,
blowing up a balloon and
yeah,
looking for the leaks to come out.
yeah,
Is that it?
yeah,
Like,
yeah. Over a certain period of time, he knows how much air he's put in, and he's just that. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's it. Yeah, air leakage he's looking for. Do you know what I mean? In that
okay,
case, yeah, yeah,
okay. But the air
yeah. And
tightness,
you might get, yeah.
it kind of goes hand in hand with your is it the heat recovery or is it the plumbing? Where do you see what trade is kind of the main one,
Right.
or
So,
is it the slabber? Who am I looking? Who's going to do this, or is it
so
everyone's responsibility?
no, not necessarily. There's companies that specifically do this for you, and they're generally slabbing what we call the metal ceiling companies, or drywall, or whatever, whatever term you want to put it. Slabbers
Yeah.
is the what we'd call them, like, on site, I suppose. So they carry out this for you, or you can train your carpenters to do it, or it depends on how your company is set up, or if you're self building, you might be doing this yourself.
Okay.
That's where you go. You can get training. There's a company in Cork I know that do training for 6 or 7 hours. It's only 70 or 80 odd quid. I done a 5-day course when all these regulations came out to learn it, and I have an apprentice carpenter on site that's just after coming back from a 2-day training course he done in Dublin.
Okay.
So it's not internationally recognized certification or anything, but you learn it. Look, and they're CPDs more than continual development. You know what I mean? You're bringing on new skills. So in our company, we do it ourselves. We do stuff out work, don't get me wrong, but we would still definitely put the control system in place for the air tightness to be done properly. Because
Okay.
this might sound daft. This stuff is expensive. Air tightness is not a cheap game. The rolls of tape are 40 odd quid. One of the lads landed in one day and he had a little box in his hands, like, it wasn't much bigger than a shoebox, and there was 800 quid in it between all the tapes and silicon and all the bits and bobs in this bag. I couldn't believe it. You know what I mean? It's expensive.
Yeah. So if you're
So if
going to
you
do,
buy
if
all this
you're
stuff and all these membranes and pay the time, yeah, pay the lads to put it up, and then you have rips and tears in corners of roofs, or where an electrician had to pull a cable and he slid it with a knife, pulled the cable down and kept going, and that wasn't taped up. The whole thing is pretty pointless, like,
okay, I'm going to. You sent me on a few pictures, and maybe you might be able to talk me through a few of these
Oh, well, of course,
photographs,
yeah,
if that's all
yeah,
right.
yeah, yeah, of course.
Let's see if I can. I don't know how to do this rightly. Okay, so is this
Yeah, perfect, yeah.
okay?
So that's near tightness tape. So that's a Seagate tape, the perforated hole so you can plaster on it. Now that one is sealing the bottom of the windows of the blockwork, and then the top of that blockwork there has to get a liquid membrane applied to it. That's airtight.
So,
So that's that
say that
blow-proof
again.
paint.
The top of what?
So the top of the blockwork where it's flat, just at the back, where the window board is going to be attached to it,
Okay.
because
So
that top of that blockwork is raw. It's
is
not sealed.
blockwork isn't airtight?
No, no, definitely not.
Okay.
So to make that blockwork airtight, you have to apply a coat of render on the inside face of the vertical wall. So where that piece of timber is lying up against, all
So
that wall, that's
but
going to get a coat of plaster.
right. If it's sand and cemented, is it
That's
airtight?
airtight, yeah. Yeah. Coat of sand and cement is airtight, yeah. Like
Okay.
obviously, a decent enough coat, not 1 or 2 millimeters. You know what I mean? It has to get a coat of render. Do you know what I
Okay.
mean?
Okay.
Normally up to 12 mil, but like heading for 10 mil anyway, at least we count as airtight. But then you're going to plaster the side reveals of the window in, but you're not going to plaster the very top flat part of that blockwork where the window board is going to go. That never gets plastered.
Yeah, no, it's not going to. Your window board
So
is going to be on before, so
correct.
that's a potential
Air
leakage
leakage.
point
Yeah,
or air
correct.
leakage. Yeah.
Correct.
Okay. Now,
So
all right, I have done a tiny bit of this um
yeah,
on my own little extension there. I put it all the way up along the vertical, all the way across the top
yes,
and
we do.
down. So
Yeah,
that
yeah.
photograph
So we do
there,
that as
you
well.
only okay, was oh sorry,
Yeah.
was this that's not finished photograph.
Correct. That's the first phase. So it gets the tape at the bottom, and then the rest of that blockwork gets a liquid membrane, and then that bottom piece is done, right? And the reason we do the bottom first is that that's the part that gets forgotten most. So the two vertical sides and the along the bottom of the lintel, that always gets done because the plaster needs that done to continue on with his trade. Okay,
Okay.
so generally, and it's bad habit for lads. What they come in and do the three sides because that's what needs to be done. It's just a bad habit. It's not doing anything wrong. So he does those three sides. The plasterer puts on his sand and cement, and then he keeps going. Then potentially what could happen is a carpenter comes in, puts in a window board, and underneath this gets forgotten. Then it's covered up and no one
Okay.
ever sees it. You know?
Yeah,
So
right.
it's an unusual situation or it's a funny one, but it's what
Yeah,
we have a
yeah, yeah.
control sheet, control document on site on a clipboard. It's hanging on a wall somewhere. And when the lads are doing this, we explain why we're doing this, who's doing this, and then we put a system in place of what products we need. So it'll be that
Sorry,
membrane. Yeah,
I
actually,
think
yeah, you're flicking
that's
through a lot in there. Yeah, that's a control document there. That's a testing checklist. So there's loads of stuff written on that of, why you're doing different things. Some things you use, some things you don't, depending on the type of build. So timber frame would be very, very different to masonry. They're the two main different types. So timber frame house would get membranes on all the walls, all the ceilings, all the junctions. Whereas blocks, obviously, when you plaster the blockwork, just like we were talking about, that's then the airtight layer. So you have to differentiate firstly your different types of construction, and then what you're going to do in each room. And it may be
okay.
in masonry. You often have
Now you
parts of the
here,
masonry. Yeah,
you're you're the main contractor. Do you think this could be easily rolled out for a self-builder? Would they have the
yeah,
confidence to
yeah,
put
yeah.
this on site and be able to,
They would have the confidence. They might not have the
will the
experience, but they need if they have some way in if they're if there's some inclination towards being handy or construction depends what their background is. But I mean,
okay.
like I teach this to apprentice carpenters, and they pick it up quite well. But I suppose I know what I'm doing. We've done it. We do lots of different
Yeah.
scenarios. But I mean, if
I'm
you
kind of thinking about the extra paperwork and stuff like that. I know that it's not much of a checklist really in regards
yeah,
paperwork side of things, but at the same time, there's not there's not well maybe when I was block laying or back when I was building, there was very little paperwork involved. How
yeah, on
much more
site.
of the
Yeah, I know.
paperwork
Yeah,
is
yeah. That
involved now?
it's changed. Yeah, it's definitely changed. Yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, like we'd have a file on site. You know, uh, typical. From all the drones. Health and safety, airtightness. I mean, it's all part of the pack. You know what I mean? So some guys
Yeah.
don't like. Some guys are moving to paperless. Paperless doesn't help us with getting something like an airtight point across. It's fine signing a health and safety document online and a DocuSign thing. That's all fine because you're ticking boxes and you're
Yeah.
explaining something face to face. I'm trying to teach, two guys to do this. Electricians, when they come on site, not to cut through to make a mess of it. Plumbers, the same way. And then when we finally do go slabbing, not to be cutting and messing with it. And then when the plaster finally does start, not to throw a Stanley knife into the corner of one of those airtightness tapes to push the tape in a bit more so he gets more plaster into the reveal. So, I mean, I've named out 6 parties or something like that. You know what I mean? That are all part of this
And they
system.
can
Or
all
it's,
and they can all potentially damage the airtightness
yeah,
kind of
it's an envelope essentially. What you're
integrity
doing,
of the whole thing.
yeah, and you're creating an envelope inside the building that air doesn't escape. That's what you're doing. You know what I mean? And that starts at the foundation, up through the walls, into the roof, and then around any penetration. So that's your windows and doors, obviously, first of all, but like any ventilation
Okay.
holes you have going through, like your MHRV in the attic have two. Like this is the big one that gets missed. Your MHRV pipes go up and down through. They all need to be taped through the membranes. You know, it's you're restricting uncontrolled air movement is what you're doing all the time. You know, so that's the window
Okay.
board fitted there now. Exactly. Yeah, yeah, yeah. And with the
And
membrane stuck up on the left hand side to tape onto it again.
okay. And that would have been painted underneath before the window board went
Correct.
on.
Correct. Correct.
Okay.
Correct. Yeah.
Grand.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
if you paint can you paint the blockwork first and then put
Yes, you can. Yeah.
the
Yeah. Yeah.
tape
Yeah. You
on?
can, of course. Yeah. Yeah. You can, of course. Yeah. But
And
you're waiting.
that
It depends how you're doing. You're waiting for the tape to paint to dry, and then it has to be touch dry before you stick the tape to it. You know what I mean? It works both ways. It doesn't, just touch dry, not bone dry or like that. But yeah, either way is fine. Once you're getting that seal between the two,
do you go sand and cement all the way to the window board or all the way to the window jamb?
no, no, different. No, so a lot of houses are dry lined for different reasons. This one has a huge pumped cavity that meets the regulations. I think this house is, don't, it could be 250 mil cavity in this one. I remember it was big anyway.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. So it depends on the
Right.
build up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. No, because
Yeah.
my plaster when he said, "Look, put in the slab. It's easier to work to, and it's
Yeah.
better."
Well, if you
And he
do
just
slab
hard
out,
all
then you
through
have
it.
to. Yeah, no, that's fine. And if you do slab out that reveal, then you have to paint that raw blockwork with blower-proof paint with a liquid membrane,
Okay.
the same as you do the bottom,
Okay.
because you've essentially
Yeah.
done the same thing to the side. You know, so that
Okay.
roof sand tape is if you're joining masonry, a masonry seal. So if you're tying the membrane on a ceiling or a wall to something solid like blockwork, you use that tape. So that's a Sika product. Um,
So that goes. Sorry, that's going to go like meeting where the ceiling meets the wall. Is that it?
yeah, so or floor wall junctions or ceiling wall junctions. Yeah, that's that one's for you.
Okay. And
Yeah,
that's what is
the
that a
color
hundred
code is
mil or
yeah,
okay?
you can get different ones. That's generally the only width around here, but you can order different sizes. But that's the only one we've ever used out. It's plenty big enough for you're not. It's not like you're being neat and tidy with this stuff. This isn't a
Yeah.
wham bam, thank you ma'am job. Like you're being neat and tidy. Everything. You'll see some of the pictures I think I sent you through of the work, and you'll see how tidy the lads.
Yeah.
It takes. It's,
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
that one
That's
is
the
so that's
that's for the windows. Yeah.
yeah, so that's actually the external one. So I didn't have an internal one with me. So you see that's black on the inside of the core,
All right.
inside like would say like see where my hand is. So my fingers are in the hole. See that's black. So that tape is actually black, and that acts as a DPC externally. So if you know DPC on an old house and the reveal is taken off, you can use that, and that acts like a DPC, and it's obviously airtight as well. That's an external tape. And you know where else that tape should be used is your ESB box and your aircon box or your telephone box outside. You could tape those to the blockwork, and that'll get you an airtight seal between those two. Because like you can imagine your ESB box and your aircon box aren't airtight to the house, so you can get air into
Yes.
your cavity there. And when you get air into your cavity, it's disrupting what the insulation is doing in that cavity. Uncontrolled airflow in your cavity is a killer to how your insulation works in your
Okay,
cavity insulation.
I
In a
get
pair,
I
yeah,
get that. I get that
yeah,
you and if you have a draft, the draft will act like a vacuum and it will just suck the air, the heat
yeah,
out of the
yeah,
room.
yeah. Because you're inside, your
Is
heating
there
is going
is there
through
a
the.
Is there a school of thought that the cavities need to be vented though?
Um, no, no, you don't vent. You don't vent cavities. No, cavities they're not airtight. They're as tight as you can make them. You know what I mean? Like
Yeah,
your DPCs and your plaster coming up to your window externally aren't airtight. That's why you're doing airtight on the inside.
inside.
That's where it becomes airtight. So you're just trying to limit the flow of air in your cavity because your heat is going out through the block, hitting that
Yeah,
insulation, and then being pushed back in. But if that insulation is being made especially cold by
yeah.
mass air infiltration externally, then that's not going to do its job as efficiently as it should be.
It's going to be a
Now
warmer
you
house
won't have
if
that
there's no
problem with a
drafts.
pumped. Yeah, but you're not going to have that like with a pump cavity. Then you're fully filling everything. So that problem is reduced
Okay, okay,
massively
okay.
if the pumping is done properly and blah
So
blah blah. You know.
for my stone cottage that the
Yeah.
windows were put back in and there's leakage, I can put that on the outside and plaster over
Yes.
this
Plaster
product
over them. Yeah. Yeah, and that'll
and
help a lot.
sand
Yeah.
and cement over, and that will it won't if it's airtight, is it waterproof? You're saying this is
This
a
is
damp
waterproof.
proof as well.
This one is waterproof as well. Yeah. Pentrum 2 it's
Okay,
called. Yeah.
interesting.
We don't use piles of this, but on occasion it's very, very handy. So retrofitting houses, sometimes we're changing windows from the outside for whatever reasons. It could be a listed, maybe not a
Yeah,
listed building, but an old building where the finishes inside are very, very high quality. You take a window out, you know,
yeah.
out the front.
Out the way, yeah.
Yeah, and then you put this back in. You can put that on, and you get a DPC. Sometimes, like as well, this is very useful if you have you can't put a DPC in. So stone is one good one, but the other ones really are cavity blocks. So you can't put a
Yes.
DPC. You just have
Yeah, yeah.
one lump of block. There's nowhere for a
Solid,
DPC to
solid.
go.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah.
Solid, like a solid 9 inch block or something like
Solid
that.
masonry,
Yeah,
yeah,
yeah, yeah.
solid masonry,
Yeah,
something like
yeah.
that. So like the situations we don't create, we're just trying to do our best with them, you know. And
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
sometimes that
yeah.
tape isn't the answer. I'm not saying it always is the answer. There's situations where it is helpful.
Yeah. But you don't have the
Yeah.
option of putting the air tightness on the inside because you're going to end up having to take all the insides. Yeah, I get you. Yeah, yeah.
There could be loads of reasons. A sliding sash window comes out. There's no masonry behind that. So how they done those was the external
Yeah,
leaf came way over. It was like stepped over massively. So your outside leaf and your inside leaf could be 300 mil away from each other. You would all
yeah,
the tape and China wouldn't tape it up like it's, and then you
yeah,
can't
yeah, yeah.
plaster over 400 mil of this tape. Things there's just situations that throw themselves at you where this is handy, and this is probably where the self builder won't have that experience maybe, or but he can. The reps are very good and they're helpful and they want to sell these products and they want people to use
Well,
them
if they
properly.
keep listening to us, Chris,
They might
they're going to
change,
learn everything. Like,
they
yeah,
might,
yeah.
or they might come mad, Paul. You wouldn't know. Yeah, they might crack up altogether.
What's this stuff?
Dark skin is these are types of primers and different things like that. So these are that we don't use this much now. Dark skin. We use there's one that comes in a tube now that we use a silicone tube, and it's just easier to apply on site. It's just another Sega product that enables. Not a lot of places carry that now. Archers and Mayo is the only one that carries that one. Yeah,
Okay. But what would
yeah.
you use that for?
That I think that's a primer from memory. We haven't used that in ages now, Dockskin. Um,
Okay.
I think it's a primer. So you put that on something like masonry first to make the tape adhere to it better.
All right. Okay,
Do,
okay.
do you know what I mean? It's
Yeah, I do. I do.
yeah. That's as far as I remember now. That's Dockskin anyway.
You mentioned this to me before about the having
Yeah,
the hoods on site, and if these
yeah.
aren't there, you could end up with a massive. The plaster border is just going to keep
Yeah,
going.
because when you tend to start having downlighters, you don't just have one like a pendant in a room. You have four like in any small room even, and like in a kitchen, you could have up to 15, 20. Like it's
Okay.
not. It
So,
wouldn't be unheard of. So,
would this go over a pendant or
no,
just
no, a
spots?
downlighter. Spotlights only, yeah. So a pendant like the cable comes through the membrane, so you can tape around that. There's grommets you can use. Lads they don't stock them. You have to order them in. Some jobs they use them if we're going for close to. It depends on the specification of the job. So we use the grommets and we use the pipe wraps if we're going for really, really really good air tightness test level, if that's
Okay.
a requirement of the project. But like we still get great results using the tapes and the silicone. It's not silicone now, it's a it's a Sika product in a silicone tube. Like obviously, gets a
Yeah,
slight dings to it.
yeah, I hear you.
But
Yeah,
like,
yeah, yeah.
yeah, so you tape the cable up to the membrane and then you give a squirt of that stuff into the cables and that locks that in nice and tight. And you also put that stuff in the conduit of the electrical cable coming down like into a socket or a light switch.
Okay.
That makes sense. And that seals that
It does,
cable
yeah.
from air coming down. Yeah.
Yeah, I have heard of that before where yeah, there'd be air loss through the sockets. All right, yeah, that was one of the big ones back in the day. Is
Yeah, I've
this
often
is
I've often stood beside a light switch and felt a breeze. It's crazy. Yeah.
yeah.
So yeah, that's the actual air tightness membrane now itself.
So
That's on a vertical
okay,
one.
I recognize that there's stud work behind.
Yeah,
So obviously
that's a little
that
knee wall in a dormer. Yeah,
okay. And your
yeah,
toilet is going out here, your feed, and
yeah.
you've got something here as well.
That's a radiator.
Uh,
I'd say the start of a radiator on the right. Yeah,
okay, and all of those are taped up with
taped.
that.
Yeah,
Okay.
and there'll be a little bit of silicone as the lads are doing that tape. They'll squirt a bit of the silicone around again and squash it all in then, so it keeps it sealed.
These are cross-battened here, so there's going to be a nail here and a nail here.
Yeah,
Does
yeah.
that
But
damage your air
it,
tightness?
it it does. But the reason that pattern is there is the 50 odd screws in the slab don't penetrate that paper because if they did, it'd be completely useless. So this is a lesser of two evils. So all those nails are going from timber to timber. So that's the paper's in between it, but it's pushed it in tight.
So it
So the
sealed it.
alternative, yes, as much as possible. Where the
Okay.
alternative to not battening that service batten is, if you put in like
Yeah.
there could be 30 or 40 screws in a slab, every one of
Yeah.
them will go
Yeah.
through
Yeah.
that membrane. And
Yeah.
the
Yeah.
ones
Yeah.
that go into the timber are fine, but the five that miss definitely aren't. Do you know what I mean? So that's
Yes.
what you're
Yeah.
doing.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
It's a good it's the right way to do it. That's they call it service batten, or that's because
But
technically you're meant to run
you
services in that zone, but
you
it doesn't
don't
really
you
suit your
don't put
services. Yeah.
a squeeze or something in here to stop you, like that's not really, you
You
don't do that.
can't really because you put the batten up to line it, and once you nail it like either end and put a line on it, it's
Yeah.
difficult. Look, we again with that system there, we'll get really really good air tightness tests.
Okay.
That won't be a like I that's as good as it gets now. That's you know
Yeah. That's the same again, obviously.
same kind of thing again now. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Just yeah.
Um,
Look,
so this is
you
upstairs here, but
so
if you're
you
joining,
see those tiny ones there, yeah.
if you're joining, let's say this is the upstairs of, what about where the downstairs, or let's say that's timber, but what about if you've got hollow core, or if you have something like that? How do you airtight that area, or can
Yeah,
you?
so yeah, you can, of course, yeah. So what you do is when you're laying down the hollow core, um, you put down something like Solitex Plus on top of the blockwork, and you wrap the ends of the hollow core in that. So then you bond that Solitex
What?
Plus
Sorry,
to the
what? That's like
Solitex Plus is
like a,
a
it's like a
roofing felt.
felt, is it?
Probably one of the it's one of the most expensive roofing felt. Sorry, best quality roofing felts. It's up in the money as well. But Solitex Plus
Okay.
would be a premium roofing felt. Generally, that's what it's
Okay.
used for. But I mean, you use it for a lot of other stuff as well. But it's a premium roof felt that we use. So you lay that down on the blockwork, and then you place the hollow core down on top of that, and you wrap the ends of the hollow core in that, and then you bond that to the blockwork on the ground floor and the first floor. You cut all that back with one of those tapes, a primer, or the blower-proof paints, or there's one of those. I think I sent you a picture of the blower-proof paint as well. So you prime it, yeah, one of
That's
those two of
not
those,
it.
yeah, yeah, that's one of those reinforced liquid membrane, and there's another one then from blower-proof. I think they are blower-proof liquid. That's the one we'd use predominantly. That one. See that airtight membrane and intelligent vapor control. That's that's the. You can see it actually in the picture on the left hand side, the guy with the hair hat. He's painting a masonry wall. You can see it going. It goes like a bluish color, but then it's black the
Okay.
next day. Yeah, it changes color overnight when it dries in. So you'd paint that onto the masonry, and then you'd use one of those. That dock skin is a primer as well. That's what I was showing you. We don't use it as much because this stuff is more. This is more uses than the Sika primer, because you can use this to seal your wall chases before you put the electrical conduit in, and you can do your floor joints and those reveals under the window board and that kind of thing. This stuff does all that, whereas that dock skin, I think, is just a primer for like a wall joint, or this is kind of this is a more universal project for different, applications. So yes, the holocore anyway, you wrap the ends of it, stick it onto the wall upstairs, downstairs, and then plaster down over that joint.
But that doesn't sound like you have to be clued in to know that this is going in. It's not a thing that you can do.
Oh yeah.
If the holocore is dropped on, you can't really air tighten it then after the fact, can you? Or it makes it a harder, more difficult job.
Yeah,
obviously.
you can start you can start with your cans of it. There's airtight foam as well. So there's normal foam. There's loads of different foams nowadays. There's fireproof foams. How fireproof they are is another, question. There's really high expanded foams. There's foams for around windows. There's foams that have insulation U values, not very big, but they're, but there's specific airtightness foam as well. And we use that as well. So you can start foaming stuff. So, and it's no harm to foam them either. So we foam the ends of the holocore anyway, because that will stop any other uncontrolled air movement. That air is quite funny, and under pressure can get in places. So like a couple of cans of foam, we foam the ends of the holocore if they're not already solid,
because that was obviously if you've got holocore, you're probably going to have a suspended ceiling, and like from the picture there before, you've got your service area where the slab, the membrane is what, like 25, 50 mil above the slab, but that you could have another, I don't know, 100 mil or 150 or 200 mil between that and the bottom of the holocore. So that's
even up to 300, 400, depends on your service void. Yeah, that's a good point. So the underside of your holocore to where your metal ceiling starts, that zone is for services. So your MHRV ventilation is one of the first things that's fixed up there, because you can't get that above a metal ceiling. Afterwards, the plumber will put all his waste pipes up, as well as sewer pipes or his waste pipes for sinks, showers. He'll definitely do all that. He may not do the hot and cold feeds because that pipe's more flexible. He might get that up, but he will try and probably do all that. And what you have then is, we'll call it 300 mil from the underside of your holocore to where your ceiling starts. You either plaster that blockwork down below your ceiling line, or you paint it with the blower-proof paint. Now, the plaster, you're bringing a trade in on site very early that you may not have even booked or agreed a price with yet. So that's where that airtight liquid membrane is perfect. Your external wall, paint it right around, paint a little bit in on your blockwork, and paint your chases at the same time, and it'll seal all your chases. Because your chasing has to be done before your metal ceiling goes up. That's just the system of that. So it's a really good time
that's something as a self-builder, I suppose you can do in your own time. It's not something that is highly skilled.
It doesn't take ages. Yeah, exactly. It's a perfect self-builder project. Yeah, you paint that in a day or two. Like, it's not, it's not bad work, and you're not neat cutting in paint, like driving yourself to, either the patience for painting properly or you don't. That type of painting is just, once you're not throwing it everywhere onto windows and doors and ruining the place, have a bit of a small bit of neatness about you. But that zone that's ideal to get that airtightness sorted out in that area.
But the big advantage of the airtightness is due to the air to water, the way that the heat pumps are working now, isn't it?
Well, it's going to lower your heating bills. Even if you're using oil or anything, like, you're a lower heating bill, you get a bit better, lower heating bills, you get a better performing heating system. That's if it's electric, which air to water is, but it also could be, Faro type heaters, or oil systems, or geothermal. Like, there's other alternative heating sources as well. But if it's airtight, you're going to lower the bills of your heating. You're reducing the chance of mold in your house with air tightness and a proper ventilation system. That's, what I mean. That's a given. by those two things working hand in hand, and you're increasing the comfort level of the people that's living in the house by not having drafty under windows, or you're not sitting in your sitting room and there's a draft coming into your
Yeah.
back. Like it's increasing the comfort level. Like it's but the big one is probably reducing your heating bills. This thing is, we one of the first things we spoke about is that it's expensive to do, but it is paying itself back.
Okay.
Do you know what I
So
mean? Like there's
it's
money
hand in
paying
hand
back.
with your insulation, really. You're looking at
Correct.
it as an add-on to the
Correct. Yeah.
insulation to
Yes.
improve the performance of that.
Blocks don't pay themselves back. Slates don't pay themselves back. Solar panels pay themselves back. Air tightness membrane. People don't think about this, but it pays itself back.
Okay.
Probably one of the quicker ones to pay itself back because it's one of the lower costs. It's cheaper to do than insulate. It's cheaper to do than
Yeah.
solar panels. So it's going to
Yeah.
pay itself back quicker, in theory. But it's one of the things that does pay itself back. Solar, any renewable, heat source or energy, insulation, and airtightness. It's something that most people don't think about. It does pay itself back,
Brilliant.
and why not do it properly then?
Brilliant. Chris, I'm going to leave it at that. Our free Zoom
Is
is
that
going
talking?
to
And you come back,
expire.
do you need a cup of tea or a pint after that now?
Well, maybe that's something we could
Both,
build
maybe.
in build in for the next one. I'm going to leave it at that, Chris. Thanks a million.
Very fun.
I could know that once we started going at that, we definitely could fill 2 or 3 hours.